let's talk about Jane's important abilities. You will occasionally use your melee attacks as Jane. For example, the signature attack, it does build up stun, and all the melee attacks build up your Odin Force for the overcharge, which is cool. And you'll occasionally use the ground pound. Note, if you ground pound on certain areas of the ground where it's like not level, it'll build up your intrinsic a little, even if there aren't any, even if you don't hit enemies. It's kind of a weird little interaction, but it definitely something to consider. You'll occasionally use your melee attacks. Your main attacks, though, are going to be your ranged attacks. You're going to use mostly just your normal range attack, and then draw it back to you, and it's going to bounce, hit enemies on the way back. You're going to use your quick fire, which is if you throw them in quick succession and time it, they're going to go faster, which is cool, and do more damage. The seek and pin, it allows you to lock on to multiple enemies and do the power attack. It's solid. You're going to occasionally use it, But most of your attacks are honestly just going to be your heroics. All right, and important is your intrinsic ability, which is called Aldmother's Blessing. It's the same as Thor's Odin Force, so it's very important for this build. It's very important in general. And your overcharge, you're going to when you are overcharged, your hammer throws will spit out lightning explosions, which are really good. They do a lot of damage, and they do some stun. Pretty useful stuff. And depending on which belt you're going to use, either of these are going to give you massive heroic charge rate bonuses, so they're very important, depending how you build. All right, the most important abilities for Jane. The most important ability for Jane is Warrior's Fury. Okay, it's the same as Thor's. It is so good. So good. It's the strongest group buff in the game. Okay, it is absurd. Run Warrior's Fury. The reason it's so good is because you're running Ymr's Wrath, which is a 25% buff for your 3 teammates. It doesn't buff yourself. Same with Hell's Anger. It only buffs your teammates, but it gives 25% crit damage and 30% crit chance. I know it says 10 because it gives 30%. I cannot stress how good Warrior's Fury is. Buff your teammates 24/7, and if all that you did 0 damage, but all you did was buff your teammates, you're going to be outputting more damage than most classes can do. It's so good. Buff your teammates 24/7. Warrior's Fury, Warrior's Fury, Warrior's Fury. All right, now let's talk about your main attacks to actually kill enemies. You're going to be using God Blast. It does a little bit of shock damage, and when you initially fire it, it fully maxes out cryo on enemies, which is good. Note, an important thing to note is if you hit 5 enemies at a time with God Blast, you'll instantly overcharge, which is very good. You're going to be using the top 2 perks for Jane, for these ones. I'll show a link in the description how to cheese it. It's very good. You get 3 charges, and it does the cryo. And you're definitely going to be running Rolling Thunder, which gives you some of your God Blast energy back per kill, and it multiplies with your various assistant perks. Very good. Okay? Your ult, there's a chest piece that makes your ult drop intrinsic orbs on hits, which is pretty good. But even if you're not running that, it's definitely good. When you initially activate the ult, it throws out a hammer attack, and then you're going to have a hammer that's floating around and locking on and hitting enemies. It's very good for the targeted perks. It counts as range crit attacks. It's going to build up shock, and it's going to drop some heroic orbs. You can only run this ability, which drops heroic orbs, and no question you run Raw Uru. You have to run it. And note, with the ultimate, if you have one out and you fire a new one, it will replace it. You can't have multiple of these hammers out like Hawkeye's ult can, unfortunately, but it's still very good. And it's going to be going 24/7. Alright. Beam of Starfire is definitely a useful perk. It counts as the intrinsic ability, so you don't need to hold the intrinsic ability. Just use the Beam of Starfire while you're flying. It does targeted perks and berserker perks and stuff like that as well. It's pretty good. Alright. Mastery perks. Powerful damage, no question. Run this one. This perk is really, really good. It's better than it's supposed to be. It's crit chance perk, so it's probably the best. It's probably the best of these perks you can get for Jane. Definitely, no question, run this one. Heroic Orb Takedown is the best for every class, and obviously run it. Targeting range is really the only one of these that's going to be useful. they're more likely to hit enemies on the way back to you, the hammers, which is good. Critical return is probably going to be Jane's best. They're more likely to crit on the way back. The velocity hammer is decent as well. Definitely range damage for Beam of Starfire is the best of these. I'd say run Ionic Bolts. If you kill guys, well, you have your intrinsic. And note, Warrior's Fury counts as intrinsic, so that's always good. They're gonna do little explosions. It's a decent little perk. This is an okay perk. This is probably run the Speed Burst. And note, if you activate Warrior's Fury while it was empty, like there's 0 seconds on it left, and then you have unlimited Speed Burst while your Warrior's Fury is active. So it's a nice little traversal bonus. I would say probably take the overcharge duration. It makes your overcharge last a little longer. I wouldn't run this one. This one's okay, but I would say just run with the duration. I would say go with the Tempest recharge. The Tempest reaction is decent as well. And definitely run this one. Alright, that's all the abilities you need to know for Jane. Alright, let's talk about the gear for Jane, the Mighty Thor. For the melee piece, this is the piece you want. You can get it for the raid or the elite raid with Precision and Valor and the Lethal Vibranium Conduit. If you don't have this piece, you can run any piece with Valor and Precision on it. There's Hive pieces from the Hive Mind with, you get a Lightning Potentiometer. There's a piece from the ulti that gives you Killing Cryo Guys, gives a defense buff, which is decent. That piece doesn't get Valor though. You know, there's other stuff you can run, but I would say you probably want this piece, especially if you're running the Vibranium payloads. It's pretty nice. It gives you, the Vibranium Conduit's really good. It gives you a Heroic Burst, and all of your teammates a Heroic Burst, so it not only helps you, helps the team. It's a pretty solid piece. Range piece, you want Targeted Spark, and ideally the Tachyon Cosmic Surge. If you realistically want to get this, you're going to have to save Scum for it, and it's going to take hours to get. But it's a really, really good piece. You know, the stat pool, Precision, Valor, Intensity, Might. You want Valor and Precision. Your build, ideally, you want one piece of Intensity, but it doesn't really matter if it's just Valor, Precision, Intensity, or Valor, Precision, Might. With a Targeted Spark, that's what you want. And range power attack is better than the pinned, for sure. Very good. Tachyon Surge is 50% damage for all your status attacks that do status damage, which all your attacks will, and 50% build-up, so it's very strong. If you don't have that piece, you can get a Targeted Spark piece with Allmother's Boon. The awesome thing about this piece is it's really easy to get. The vendors, just check the vendors. It's not a guaranteed thing, it's just a hourly thing they have a chance to give them. You can get it from RNG, so really, really good. Allmother's Boon is while your intrinsic is going, and no, your intrinsic includes your Warrior's Fury, so it's going to be up basically all the time, and it goes up to 20% crit chance. I mean, really, really strong. Almost as good as Tachyon Surge. I mean, if this thing had better stats, it would be really close to this. It's a great piece, and it's easy to get, so my advice would be go for this piece. Don't grind your life away to get a Tachyon Surge. But, you know, if you want to get the best possible piece, go for the Tachyon Surge. I honestly don't even have this piece. I'm just running this piece, you know. It's definitely a great piece. And damage buff hammers, you can get one with the Allmother's Boon or a targeted Tachyon Surge. You're gonna want a damage buff hammer as well. These are useful for the eye phase and the Vibranium room, you know, shooting his eye and shooting the Vibranium pillars. It's definitely something good to have, damage buff hammers as well. But for most of the stuff, you're going to use targeted sparks. The great thing about targeted sparks is not only your hammer attacks, but your ultimate is going to trigger the targeted sparks, so you can have unlimited ults or heroics going. Alright, the chest piece. You can run from the raid or the elite raid a piece with Vibranium Breaker and Valor and Precision. The stat pool is Valor, Precision, Might, Resilience. Might and Resilience are not that great. Unfortunately for Jane, Jane does not get the 18% Warrior's Fury Breaker that Thor can get. Thor could get the Rotor Breaker and an 18% Warrior's Fury Breaker. You only get the Vibranium Breaker, but it's a pretty good piece. And this breaker is only really useful if you're running the Vibranium payload. I suppose if teammates are as well, it comes in, but yeah. Another great piece, as always, are reactive damage buffs to reactive buff chest pieces, ideally with Valor, Precision, and Proficiency would probably be the best third stat for sure. These are especially good against turrets and the OLT, so definitely reactive buff chest pieces, more than good enough to run. The third option is the Armor of Asgard Scion. You can get it from the Rushko Protocol event. You're guaranteed to get it, so easy to get. You can get it from party threat sectors as well, 1 in 4 chance, and you can get it from flashback missions, but I wouldn't grind for it. The bad thing about this piece is the stat pool. Resolve, Intensity, Resilience. None of these stats increase your DPS, which is a bummer. The good part about this piece is the top perk. Your ult will have about a 1 in 3 chance to drop Intrinsic Orbs when hitting an enemy. It's just going to be hitting lots and lots of enemies, so there's going to be tons of Intrinsic Orbs just laying around the battlefield. Almost as much as Panther with the spear spamming. It's very good. And it's a good way to grab. You can grab the orbs for yourself, which is a good way to overcharge, and of course they're good for the teammates. Speaking of overcharge, we have the heroic piece, the overcharge one. This piece requires you to be overcharged for the top perk to work, which gives you 300% heroic charge rate and a bunch of healing effectiveness, but this is the part that makes this piece so good. It's 300% heroic charge rate. It's insane. The middle perk is cute, you know, you get some little explosions, and you definitely, if you have this piece, you want one with a Berserker buff or a Berserker Spark. And the awesome thing about this exact piece, you can just buy it. You don't have to grind for it. Just go to you can just buy it from the Helicarrier. I think it's on Thursday. I don't remember which day of the week it is, but they sell this once a week. So amazing piece, just buy it. Easy to get. That's awesome. Another option is the Wreath, especially this is the old version of the Wreath's Girdle. Thor can still buy this piece. It sells it on the Wakanda vendor every Wednesday. The cool thing about this piece is instead of using overcharge, it's intrinsic or laser or Warrior's Fury counts as your Odin Force / All Mother's Blessing and Odin Force are the same thing. Just 320 heroic charge rate while it's active, and this one is going to be better for maintaining your heroics than the previous piece, but it's not going to hit quite as hard. The middle perk is cute. This bottom perk is actually pretty nice. It not only helps you, but it makes your buff for the teammates last 3 seconds longer. And I think I stressed how good Warrior's Fury is a buff for your teammates. So great piece. Sadly, you can't get it anymore. Here's the new updated piece. It's a lot worse. This perk is, instead of this perk, they're both cute perks. It's fine. Same bottom perk, same stats. The downside is this perk is about half as good as this. This one would be 140 heroic charge rate. I think they can go up to 1.8, so they can go up to 180, which is still pretty good, but 320 is a lot better than 180, obviously. And the third option you can get from the raid or the elite raid. This functions the same way as the Wreath, but it's instead of 320%, it's 200%. It also, you can get a Warrior's Fury breaker on it, which is pretty solid. You know, Valor, Precision, Resilience, Might. You can get a little more. It's exotic, so more stats than the purple one. And the Sonic Conduit, you honestly not really going to use it. You don't really use Sonic gear, but you know, it's something, I guess, at the bottom perk. Of these three pieces, this one is the best DPS. This one is the best. This piece is the best for heroic charge rate to continuously buff your teammates with the Warrior's Fury. And this one is the middle ground one. So all three of these pieces are great. Sadly, you can't get this one anymore, but this one's super easy to get. So that's awesome. Oh, and to get that first piece, this Belt of the Allfather, you go to the Helicarrier vendor, but there's 2 vendors at the bottom 4 basically, and how you get it is check it. It'll show 1 set of 4, and then you have to go in your inventory, scroll over an item, and then check again, and you should see the other set. If that doesn't work, click on the vendor, like look at different directions. It's a little finicky and weird, but you should be able to see it. And the day they sell this, they also sell these heroic pieces, these Villain Sector 4 pieces for a bunch of other characters as well, which you could look at. So yeah, easy to get pieces are always awesome, especially when it's Berserker buff with the 2 stats you want. Alright, stat relic. You want a Valor relic. Sadly, Jane cannot buy perfect Valor relics from the vendors, so you're just having to get one from RNG. There are probably offline vendors you can look at as well. Powerful Boon is probably the best perk on it, you know. So if you RNG, just get a triple stat Valor relic, run it. Even though the Powerful Boon is not that important, you just want a triple stat Valor relic. And the other relic you're going to want is the Known Storm of the Bulwark. What you really want is Vibranium Payload. These relics you get from the raid or the Elite raid. You can also get it from the Vibranium event, but the odds of getting it are very low. The problem with this piece is it's very hard to get. It's just statistically unlikely that you ever get it. Hopefully you get one with triple good stats, but you know, you'll take anything. You'll take this piece even if the stats are not good. If you don't have this piece, which a lot of you probably won't, it's just statistically unlikely to get, you can run 2 Valor relics. That's always fine. They're not hard to get. Alright, exotic relics. Generally speaking, the 2 best relics in the game are the Ring and the Nornstone of Lethal Will. Nornstone has the best activated ability of these 3. The passives on the Nornstone making your damage buff last longer, and the 10% crit chance, despite what it might say, is actually significantly better DPS buff than the Tactagon. The Ring is nice on builds that produce lots of intrinsic orbs, but if you're not running that chest piece, you're not going to be creating a ton of orbs, so it's not insane. And the Ring gives 50% more, whether it be heroic or intrinsic from low orbs, which is nice. The surplus is cute, and the cornucopia is decent. The Tactagon has the worst activated ability of these 3, and the passives are okay. It's 10% status buildup, which is a joke. 10% damage to an enemy that has a status on them. The cool thing about Thor and Jane is that you fire the God Blast, it instantly builds up cryo. So it's an extra 10% damage plus 10 Valor, 10 Might. It's really small, but it's something, you know. I would say probably the Nornstone of Lethal Will is the best one, but if you're not running damage boost, you could run Tactagon or the Ring. They're both fine. Buff your team. Okay, the thing that makes this build so good, or the whole point, one of the whole reasons you're running a heroic build, is to give your team Warrior's Fury. It's not just good for you. Yeah, it gives you invincibility. Yeah, it counts as intrinsic for your heroic charge rates. But this buff for your teammates, 25% damage, 30% crit chance. I know it says 10, but it's 30% for all 3 teammates, and 25% crit damage. I mean, it's the strongest hitting damage buff in the game. Hits harder than Tachyon Surge, hits harder than damage buff, hits harder than Kamala's buff. It's insane. Buff your team 24/7. Like, I can't stress how good it is. Even if you did no damage yourself and all you did was buff the teammates, you're probably going to contribute more DPS than most of the other guys on your team during the raid. Alright, champion points, same as everyone else. The crit ones are the best. These 4 are decent, this one's okay, this one's pretty weak, and these are trash. Alright, the stat priority for Jane is your best stat is Valor. Your second best stat is Precision. Worth noting for Precision is that Precision also increases your damage of your God Blast. So they're both going to make your heroics and your hammer hit harder. Valor gives heroic damage and crit damage. This is range damage and your God Blast damage. And something else to note is your God Blasts don't crit, which is kind of weird with the Valor, but okay. Your next best stats, you want a piece of Resolve for sure, and you probably want a piece of Proficiency, although you don't need it because you got that extra 15% crit chance base. And then Resilience and Might are pretty weak. You don't really want them, but they're not worthless. You definitely want Valor on every piece you have, and ideally you want Valor and Precision on basically all your pieces you have. Intensity, you probably want one piece of Intensity. You don't need it a ton because Jane's cryo instantly builds no matter the enemy, no matter your intensity, so it's not super important, but you want one piece. You don't want 2 or 3 pieces though. They're worthless after that. Overall, Jane performs very similar to Thor, obviously. AoE DPS is great, killing tons of enemies. Battery damage, you have the best support buff in the game, same as Thor's. You're not going to die with the heroic build. You can fly, which is super important. Stun damage is actually better than Thor if you build up your overcharge and just throw the hammer with the explosions. Jane overall, one of the flyers, I would say 3rd best character in the game besides Iron Man and Thor. Very, very close to Thor though, performance wise. Great hero. Elite Raid, Jane performs very similar to Thor. Again, good survivability, good against killing adds, great godly support buff. You can fly. During the Forge phase, you can one-shot the crystals that pop out. In the Vibranium room in the Eye phase, you might want to use those damage buff hammers. But you can fly, give the support buff, and do decent range damage against the Vibranium pillars. Eye phase, same thing as Thor. Give the godly support buff to your Iron Man, and you can laser beam the eye. And Claw, what you want to do probably with Claw is Jane is either Panther Cheese or buff your teammates and hold the boss with God Blast so your teammates can one phase him. You're probably not going to usually go for the DPS with Jane or Thor. Yeah, overall, the Jane is an amazing character, one of the best in the game. Pretty easy to build too, which is always nice.